The first omen wasn't a scream in the warp or a choir in a cathedral. It was silence. On the dead edge of the Cadian Gate's old scars, where reality still remembered how to split, an Imperial picket station watched its auspex go blind, one instrument at a time. Vox hymns stuttered. The ship's saint icons, usually warm with candlelight and superstition, dimmed as if embarrassed to be seen. Even the navigator's third eye, peering into that hateful sea, narrowed in instinctive fear. Then something else arrived. Not a demonic shriek, not a sorcerous storm. A presence heavy as judgment, calm as sunrise. The warp around it didn't churn, it recoiled. Mugos, Lex Mechanic Rill, of the Adeptus Mechanicus, recorded the moment with trembling mechadendrites. His log would later be burned by the Inquisition, then copied in secret by 3 different Ordo cells, then quoted in whispers by a sister of battle who swore she heard metal itself pray. Unidentified mass, biosignature, impossible. Psychic index, absolute. Emotional residue, mercy. The station's outer cameras caught the shape first, a lion, vast and gold in the gray, stepping out of a wound in space as if walking through a curtain. No drop pod, no teleport flare, no warp lightning, just a great beast placing a paw onto cold plasteel, and the universe behaving as if it had always been allowed to do so. An Astra Militarum trooper, hands shaking on his lascan, did what humans always did when confronted with the incomprehensible. He asked for orders. None came, because every officer, every priest, every servitor, and even the ship's sanctioned psyker was staring at the lion as if their souls had been caught doing something childish. The ecclesiarchy priest found his voice first. In the Emperor's name. The lion turned his head. His eyes weren't fire. They weren't warp glow. They were something worse for a galaxy built on terror. They were kind. The priest's words died, not from fear, but from the sudden, humiliating certainty that he had been performing devotion rather than living it. Within an hour, the Inquisition arrived like a guillotine with thrusters, Ordo Malleus, black ships, seals on seals. A witch hunter's certainty that anything unfamiliar must be either weapon or infection. Inquisitor Val stepped onto the station's deck with retinue and hexagrammic wards, her expression sculpted from suspicion. She saw the lion, and did not flinch because she had trained her soul to kneel only to necessity. Identify yourself, she commanded. State your nature, state your allegiance. The lion did not speak with a mouth. He spoke the way a truth speaks inside you, where you keep your last honest thought. I am called Aslan. Val felt her heart do something treasonous. Relax. She despised it. A daemon can wear any skin, she snapped, turning to her sanctioned psyker. Probe it. The psyker reached, and met a wall not of force, but of clean light, like trying to plunge a dirty hand into a spring. He recoiled, sobbing, not in pain but in sudden clarity. I can't, he gasped. There's nothing to hook, no hunger, no hook, no warp. That was what terrified Val most. In the following days, the lion moved quietly, steadily through the Imperium's reach like a rumor that refused to become a lie. A strike cruiser of the Adeptus Astartes came next, chapter unknown to most records but known to battle. Black armor, red trim, voices like verdicts. Their chaplain spoke in litanies. Their librarian watched the lion with eyes that had seen the warp and learned to hate it. This is a temptation, the chaplain warned his brothers. A softness offered to make us weak. Aslan regarded the space marines, those engineered sons of war, stitched together to endure horror without breaking, and something in his gaze did not condemn them. It mourned them. The librarian stepped forward, psychic hood humming, and asked a question that didn't sound like an accusation. If you are not of the warp, he said, what are you? Older than your war, not older than your choice. That answer followed the librarian like a splinter. It never left him. On a shrine world, the Adepta Sororitas assembled, bolters across their chests, hymns sharpened into weapons. Canoness militant Leona demanded proof, as if faith could be audited. Aslan walked among them, and the air changed. Not into peace. This galaxy did not permit peace, but into something rarer, courage without rage. One sister fell to her knees, not in worship, but in exhaustion. I have burned so many, she whispered. Tell me I did it for something. Aslan's presence did not absolve her. It did something crueler and cleaner. It reminded her that meaning was not granted by empires. It was chosen and paid for and carried. Leona rose from that meeting with tears she would never admit to, and a vow that sounded like her old vows but felt different. Less like theater, more like steel. And then the galaxy reacted the way it always reacted to anything that threatened its addiction to despair. It tried to claim him. The ecclesiarchy began to preach the Lion Son of Terror, a miracle folded neatly into Imperial doctrine. The Mechanicus sought to classify him as an STC echo, a divine machine beast, a biological relic. The Inquisition drafted 100 containment plans. Even the High Lords, distant and panicked, sent sealed edicts. Secure, study, control. Aslan did not run. He simply refused to be owned. That refusal drew other eyes. In the webway's shadowed arteries, Eldari Farseers tasted the ripple of his arrival like a clean note in a rotten song. A harlequin troupe danced the news as a jest. A lion walks where gods are hungry. On a maiden world's edge, a Farseer approached him beneath alien stars. You are out of place, she warned. This realm devours hope. Aslan's reply was soft and terrible. Then let it choke. The Tau Empire tried next diplomats, drones, and the glossy confidence of a civilization that still believed it could engineer its way around tragedy. An ethereal offered alliance. Join the greater good, he said gently. Your influence could stabilize. Aslan's gaze rested on him, and the ethereal's calm slipped for a heartbeat, revealing something brittle underneath. A need to be obeyed. Good is not greater when it is forced. The Tau withdrew, disturbed not by aggression, but by a moral weight they could not negotiate with. The orcs came, as orcs always did, with laughter and guns and the simple joy of violence. A warband charged him on a dust world, convinced this big shiny squig lion would make a good scrap. They reached him, and stopped, not frozen, not held, just uncertain, as if someone had turned down the volume on their brutality. The knob blinked, confused, then furious at the confusion, then swung anyway. Aslan took the blow on his shoulder like a king accepting a peasant's insult. The knob's weapon bent, not because of strength, but because the universe briefly remembered a rule it had forgotten. Some things are not meant to be harmed. The orcs fled, then argued about it for days, half claiming he was the best fight they never had, half insisting it was dead sneaky magic. All of them unsettled by a sensation no orc enjoyed, shame. And in the dark between stars, other predators tasted him like blood in water. The tyranids arrived as a splinter fleet, hunger made into geometry. They poured into a system, stripping moons, boiling seas, turning life into fuel. Imperial forces prepared the usual answer. Sacrifice, delay, prey. Aslan walked to the front line where guardsmen shook and space marines loaded and priests screamed into microphones. He did not roar. He spoke, and the sound was felt more than heard. Hold. The tyranids surged, and the warp quieted. The shadow in the warp, the suffocating psychic smog that smothers thought, met Aslan's presence and thinned, as if it could not bear to exist near him. Astropas, for the first time in that war, did not claw their faces. They wept with relief and kept sending coordinates. The Imperium fought harder because they could think, but the tyranids did not fear light. They feared only starvation. So Aslan did something that made the Inquisition's teeth grind and the ecclesiarchy's sermons fracture. He did not destroy the swarm with wrath. He drew it. He stepped onto a barren planetoid and became a beacon, an irresistible certainty in the hive mind, a nutrient of significance. The swarm redirected, collapsing onto him like an ocean, trying to drown the sun. Bioforms tore at him, acid hissed, claws raked. He did not break them with gore or spectacle. He simply endured, and in enduring, He changed the equation. The swarm fed and fed and fed, and found no satisfaction, because it was trying to consume something that was not merely matter, not merely energy, not merely soul, stuff. It was trying to consume meaning. The hive mind recoiled, not in fear, but in error, a hunger encountering a meal it could not digest. Imperial guns burned the swarm while it faltered, and the planetoid became a graveyard of failed appetite. Far away, in the Imperium, Chaos noticed. The ruinous powers did not hate Aslan the way they hated the Emperor's light. They hated him the way darkness hates a door left open. A storm of whispers swept through cults. Slanesh promised rapture if the lion could be corrupted. Tsiench spun plots around his name. Nurgle tried to drown him in loving rot. Khorne howled for a war worthy of his throne. A warp rift split above a cathedral city. Daemon spilled out horned, laughing, starving for reality. Inquisitor Val arrived with grey knights and wards in cold resolve, expecting to die. Instead, Aslan walked into the breach. The daemons shrieked as if burned, not by flame, but by truth. They struck him, and their claws passed through something that refused to be reduced into pain. The rift trembled, resisting, and Val, who had executed worlds for lesser anomalies, saw something that made her throat tighten. Aslan was not battling them like a champion. He was closing a wound. He looked back at the humans watching him, soldiers, sisters, Astartes, tech priests, and for a second, every one of them felt the same impossible invitation. You could be more than this. Then the rift snapped shut like a mouth losing its teeth. The battlefield was quiet again. Val approached him afterwards, her pistol lowered, her certainty in tatters. "If you are this," she said hoarsely, "why stay? This galaxy doesn't deserve you." Aslan's eyes held the whole ugly truth of the 41st millennium and did not blink. "Neither did yours." That answer ruined her. Not because it was comforting, because it wasn't. Because it was responsibility disguised as mercy. In the months that followed, the Imperium tried to catalogue him, canonize him, cage him, weaponize him. It failed, repeatedly. Where Aslan walked, chaos cults collapsed, not always by death, but by desertion. Where he stood, the desperate sometimes chose to live. Where he spoke, even hardened killers remembered the shape of a conscience. But hope in Warhammer 40,000 is not a candle you carry without consequence. Some called him heresy. Some called him a saint. Some called him a Xenos trick. Some called him the Emperor's wrath made gentle. Aslan allowed the names to fall away like ash. And one day, without announcement, without fanfare, he left. Not slain, not banished, not captured. Simply gone, as if the galaxy had blinked and missed a sunrise. Only small things remained. A guardsman who refused an order to massacre civilians and accepted execution with a steadier spine. A sister of battle who began to protect the innocent more fiercely than she punished the guilty. A space marine librarian who, in the privacy of his fortress monastery, stopped calling compassion weakness. And Inquisitor Val, who should have written him into a report and erased it from history, instead sealed a single sentence into a cipher only she would ever read. There are powers that do not rule by fear. That is why we fear them most. Because in a universe built on endless war, the strangest invasion was not a conquering god. It was a lion who came without chains, refused every throne, met every faction from terror to the webway to the warp, and left behind a more dangerous weapon than terror. The memory that the darkness is not all there is.